Hello students, I am Vidya Obrapanwar, lecturer in Electronics and Communication Department of SJP Trust Polytechnic, Nirusoshi. In the coming videos, I am going to discuss about the important questions for the subject Industrial Automation, which is for 6th semester EC branch. So the first unit for this subject is Power Electronic Devices. This unit is for 10 hours duration and it carries total 25 marks. So one question for 5 marks and two questions for 10 marks. And sometimes one extra question can also be asked. So thus we will have nearly 30 marks questions on this topic. This chapter covers about the power semiconductor devices, the construction of all the power semiconductor devices, then the VI characteristics, applications, advantages and disadvantages. So let us start with the definition of what is power electronics. So the first unit of the subject industrial automation is power electronic devices. Let us define what is power electronics. So power electronics is the branch related with electronics and electrical engineering. It deals with the conversion of one form of electrical energy into another form. So for various applications in our day to day life, this power electronics is very important, and we know that we have got two sources of energy, that is AC and the DC. So this subject deals with the conversion of one form of electrical energy into another form of electrical energy. It also deals with the control of electric energy. Some of the applications in our day to day life in industries or in home which require low power or high power as compared with the mains. So here we have to control the electric energy. So power electronic deals with this control of energy and it deals with the conversion of energy. So it is defined as a branch of electronics and electrical engineering which deals with the study of conversion and control of electric energy. Now this electric energy can be converted by four methods. Those are AC to DC converters, AC to AC converters, DC to AC converters and DC to DC converters. So there are four types of converters, that is rectifiers, that is AC to DC converters. Then we have got inverters which converts DC power into AC. Then we have got chopper which converts DC power to DC power. Then we have got cycloconverters which converts AC signals into the AC. So generally we will deal with all these different circuits and the components used for these circuits. So the first question always asked on this topic is the classify power semiconductor devices. So this question is asked for 5 marks, and here we have to list out the different power electronic devices. So first we will define what is power semiconductor devices, then we will classify the power semiconductor devices. So power semiconductor devices are used as on off switches in the power control circuits. Control of different processes is achieved by on off control, means the device which is used for controlling can be in on state or it can be in the off state. So based upon the number of layers, number of terminals, then about the gate signal, then depending upon the turn on and turn off characteristics, the power semiconductor devices are classified into three categories. Those are diodes, thyristors and transistors. So diodes, we know that diodes are two terminal PN junction device. So diodes are nothing but these are uncontrolled rectifying devices. These turn on and turn off states are controlled by power supply. So these are uncontrolled devices. So whatever power supply we give, so depending upon that voltage, output is achieved. Then thyristors. So these thyristors are 4 layer three terminal control devices, and these have got PNPN layers, and this has to be given gate signal to make the device go in on state, and some external circuits are required to make the device go in the off state. So this category of power semiconductor devices, that is thyristors, are SCRs, that is silicon control rectifiers, GTOs, that is gate turn off thyristor, SITH, that is static induction thyristor, MOS controlled thyristor, that is MCT, then triacs are there, then LASCR is there, that is LASCR is light activated silicon control rectifiers. Then the third category of power semiconductor devices are the transistors. Again, these are control devices, and these are again three terminal devices. These switches are turn on and turn off by the operation of control signals, and these controllable switches are BJT, that is bipolar junction transistor, MOSFET, metal oxide semiconductor field effect transistor, IGBT, that is insulated gate bipolar transistor, SIT, that is static induction transistor. So this is a brief listing of the different types of power semiconductor devices. The next question which is asked is about the applications of power electronic devices. So the question will be, list the application of power electronic devices. So here we are going to list out the applications. We are not going to explain these because this question is for 5 marks. So we can write like this: the applications of power electronic devices are, these are used for speed control of motors, which are used in traction drives, textile mills, rolling mills, cranes, lifts, compressors, pumps, etc. So motor control wherever is required. So to control the speed of the motors, the power semiconductor devices are used. These next application is that these are used for high voltage supplies for electronic precipitors. So what is this precipitors? In precipitors are nothing but these are used to purify or to collect the dust particles. Then the power semiconductor devices are also used for X-ray generation. Then next application is uninterruptible power supplies, then standby power supplies for critical loads. So critical loads are used in the, what you can call it as, in the hospitals, where the hospitals and in some industries also, where the devices should be on for all the 24 hours, and if sometimes there is breaking in the power supply, that time it may cause very much loss for the process. So for that we require the power supplies, standby power supplies, and for this we can say that this type of power supplies we require for computers and medical equipments. The next application is power supplies for communication system, where it should be on for all the 24 hours, telephone exchange, satellite system. So here also again standby power supplies are to be used. Then solid state power compensators, static contractors, then transformer tap, chargers, etc. Another application of power electronics is power conversion for high voltage DC and high voltage AC transmission system. Then power control in resistance welding, induction heating, electrolysis process in industry. So these are some of the applications of power semiconductor devices, means power electronic devices. Now let us start with the different types of power semiconductor devices. So here we get the question, according to that we have to write the answers. If it is for 5 marks we will write in short, if it is for 10 marks we have to write in a descriptive manner. Sometimes these questions can be in the form of that, write the structure. So we have to draw the diagram along with the label. and we have to define the labels properly even if the question is for 5 marks. So first question which is asked commonly is the structure. So they can ask the structure of different power semiconductor devices. So first let us start with the power diode. So question will be, explain the structure of power semiconductor diode. So here we have to draw the diagram of power semiconductor diode. We have to write the dimensions, then we have to write the doping levels. Now here we know that power semiconductor diode is nothing but it is a PN junction diode which has one additional layer which we call it as a drift layer or drift region, which is not present in the ordinary or signal diodes. So it has that additional n minus drift layer. So it is an uncontrolled device because it has got only two terminals, that is the input terminal and the output terminal. One more important characteristics of this power diode is that due to the additional drift layer, conductivity modulation takes place. So let us see the symbol is drawn here. We know that it has got two terminals, that is anode and cathode. Arrow indicates anode and the vertical line indicates the cathode. Now let us see what is the construction of this power diode. So figure shows the construction and we can explain it in this way. There is heavily doped N plus substrate with doping layer of 10 to the power 19 per centimeter cube. So heavily doped means impurity is more, number of impurity atoms is more. So the doping level is heavily doped means number of doping is 10 to the power 19 per centimeter cube forms the cathode of the diode. So on this N plus substrate, lightly doped N minus epitaxial layer is grown. Now here heavily doped substrate which forms the cathode. So on this cathode one extra layer which is lightly doped, means if it is lightly doped we write it as N minus, if it is heavily doped we write it as N plus. So this drift region is grown epitaxially. So this is one of the method to grow the junction. So and the doping level of this layer is 10 to the power 14 per centimeter cube. The PN junction is formed by diffusing a heavily doped P plus region. This we can clearly see in the diagram. So the PN junction is formed by diffusing a heavily doped P plus region. This forms anode of the power diode. We know that there are two terminals of the power diode, that is P plus anode, N plus cathode, and in between that extra layer, drift layer or drift region is inserted, and that is having doping of 10 to the power 14 per centimeter cube. And due to this additional layer, the working of the power diode changes. So the thickness of this P plus and N plus substrate is 10 micrometer and 250 micrometer, and the thickness of N minus drift region depends upon the breakdown voltage of the diode. So as the breakdown voltage of the diode changes, the width of this drift region is going to change. The higher breakdown voltage, the drift region is wide. If the breakdown voltage required is high, then drift region width is more, and if it is less, then the width will also be less. So this is all with respect to the structure of the power diode. Now next, one very important concept is the conductivity modulation, which occurs due to the additional layer, that is drift region. Now we know that this power semiconductor devices, or we can say that diode, works in forward bias and reverse bias mode. So under forward bias condition of power diode, the holes are injected from P region into the drift region. When we see the diagram, structure diagram, it is clear. So when we forward bias the diode, means when we connect positive terminal to the of the supply to the anode and negative terminal of the supply to the cathode, then this mode we call it as a forward bias. So when the diode is forward biased, some of the holes combine with the electrons in the drift region. Since injected holes are large, they attract electrons from n plus layer. Now we know that the majority charge carriers in p region is holes and in n region is electrons. So when we forward bias, the holes from the p region and the electrons from the n region, they combine in the drift region. So thus holes and electrons are injected in the drift region simultaneously. Both will come in the drift region simultaneously. Hence, due to recombination, resistance of drift region reduces significantly. Thus, the diode current goes on increasing, but the drift region resistance remains almost constant. So, this phenomena is called as conductivity modulation, and this is the important characteristics of drift region. Next question which is asked is the explain the VI characteristics of power diode. So here we have to first draw the diagram, then we have to explain with the VI characteristics of the power diode. So the figure shows the VI characteristics of the power diode. So here we have got two regions, that is forward bias and the reverse bias. So the characteristics are plotted between the anode current with respect to anode cathode voltage. So figure we can observe it. So in the forward bias condition, anode current increases linearly with voltage. In lower power diodes, current increases exponentially, but in power diodes, the current increases linearly. The linear rise takes place because of ohmic resistance in the n minus layer, because we know that in the power diode there is additional layer, that is n minus drift region, which is lightly doped. As a result, current rises linearly. Hence it appears a low value internal resistance of diode, this is drift region, and the current increases linearly. A forward bias of 1 volt is sufficient to trigger the diode into conduction. So even if we apply a 1 volt forward bias, the device will go in the conduction. When the diode is reverse biased, a very small anode current will flow. This current is called as leakage current. When the diode is reverse biased, a very small leakage current will flow through the device. When the reverse bias is greater, then reverse breakdown voltage occurs. When the reverse or the diode goes in breakdown, anode current starts increasing rapidly. The device will go in breakdown and anode current will start increasing rapidly, and at this point, at the breakdown, the voltage will remain constant, but the current will increase. Hence, large power dissipation will take place and diode will be damaged. So in this way, the characteristics of the power semiconductor diode can be plotted. This video is the continuation of the previous video, that is the first chapter of industrial automation, power semiconductor devices or power electronic devices. So in the last video we discussed about the power diode. Now here sometimes one question is asked, list the applications of power diodes. So some of the applications of power diodes are given in this slide, and these questions are asked for 5 marks. So first application of power semiconductor diode is that it is used as rectifying a voltage such as turning AC into DC voltages. These are used for isolating signals from a supply. So depending upon whether we use the diode in a reverse bias, it can be used to isolate the signal. These are used as voltage reference. These are used for controlling the sign of a signal. Power diodes are used to mix the signals. In UPS, battery chargers, welding and traction, power diodes are used. In the switched mode power supply, commutation circuits, choppers, induction heating, power diodes are used. Very high frequency switching power supplies and instrumentation uses power diode. Next device which we are going to study is the power BJT. So the symbols are shown in the figure. We know that power BJT are of two types, that is PNP and NPN. So the transistor family of devices consist of power BJT, MOSFET and IGBT. These are widely used in switched mode power supplies and in PWM inverters, that is the pulse width modulation inverters. So the symbol shows that the three terminals are emitter, base and the collector. So power BJT is a three terminal bipolar junction transistor. So bipolar means the conductivity in this device is due to two types of charge carriers, that is the holes and electrons. The terminals are emitter, base and collector. BJTs are of two types, that is NPN and PNP. BJT turns on when base emitter is forward biased and BJT turns off when base emitter drive is removed. Now in the power electronic circuits, this power BJT we are going to use for on off switching. We are not going to use this BJT as an amplifier. Next, the question is asked, explain or write the structure of BJT. So if the question is asked for write or draw the diagram, we have to draw the diagram and some important points we are going to write. So in the figure we can see the structure of the power BJT. Now generally we know that the signal BJT or the ordinary BJT has got three layers, that is emitter, base and collector. But in power BJT an additional layer, that is the drift region, is present. So the figure we can see and the dimensions are written, and let us understand the structure of the power BJT. So in this structure we observe that there is highly doped emitter region. Highly or heavily doped means the intensity of doping will be 10 to the power 19 per centimeter cube. The emitter region has the thickness of about 10 micrometer. The base has moderate doping of the order of 10 to the power 16 per centimeter cube. The thickness of the base can vary from 5 to 20 micrometer. Small base thickness provides good amplification capability. The collector is split into two regions. We can see clearly that the collector is split into two regions. So the two regions of collector are collector drift region and the collector region. The N- region has light doping and it is called as collector drift region. The thickness of N- layer determines the breakdown capability of the transistor. The N+ collector region has high doping density. Next question which is asked is about the VI characteristics of the BJT. So the question is asked, explain the VI characteristics of power BJT. So the output characteristics are plotted. When we consider the VI characteristics of BJT, we can see the graph or the plot of the VI characteristics. So here the characteristics are plotted between the voltage between collector emitter and the collector current. So there are 4 regions when we observe the graph, and these 4 regions we name it as cutoff region, active region, quasi saturation and hard saturation. So in normal or ordinary BJT there are 3 regions, that is cutoff region, active region and the saturation region, but due to the additional drift layer the characteristic is divided into 4 layers. Those 4 layers are cutoff region, active region, quasi saturation and the hard saturation region. The cutoff region is the area where base current is almost 0. So when we apply base drive, then only the BJT will go in conduction. So when there is no base current, that time the BJT is not going to conduct, and that region we call it as cutoff region. So the cutoff region is the area where base current is almost 0. Here no collector current flows and the transistor is in off state. In the next region, that is saturation region. So in the saturation region, which is divided as quasi saturation and hard saturation, the base drive is applied and the transistor is said to be in on state. So hence collector current will flow depending upon the load. The BJT is never operated in the active region. So in the active region BJT will operate as an amplifier. So power BJT is operated either in the cutoff region or it is operated in the saturation region. Thus BJT acts as a switch. Now here one thing we have to keep it in mind, that why there is 2 regions of saturation, that is hard saturation and the quasi saturation. I told that is due to the additional layer. So when the switching frequency is more, that time the BJT will operate in quasi saturation region, and when the operating frequency is less, that time the BJT will work or operate in the hard saturation region. Now in power electronics the BJT acts as a switch. So we will go with some of the important definitions of the different parameters in case of the power BJT. So the BVSUS is the maximum collector to emitter voltage that can be sustained means preserved when BJT is carrying substantial collector current. So the voltage, that is BVSUS, is the maximum collector to emitter voltage that can be maintained when BJT is carrying substantial collector current. The next definition is BVCEO. So BVCEO is the maximum collector to emitter breakdown voltage that can be sustained or maintained when the base current is 0. So when base is open circuited, then the maximum collector to emitter breakdown voltage is called as BVCEO, and the BVCBO is the collector base breakdown voltage when the emitter is open circuited. The BVCBO is the collector base breakdown voltage when the emitter is open circuited. So these are the definitions of some of the parameters. When we observe the plot, that is the VI characteristics of BJT, we observe that there are two types of breakdown. First is the primary breakdown and second is the second breakdown. So the primary breakdown in BJT takes place because of avalanche breakdown of the collector base junction. We know that there are two types of breakdown, that is the Zener breakdown and avalanche breakdown. So when the voltage applied is more, that time the avalanche breakdown takes place. So the primary breakdown in BJT takes place because of avalanche breakdown of the collector base junction. The large power dissipation normally leads to primary breakdown. Now in case of BJTs, the emitter base junction is forward biased and collector base junction will be reverse biased. Then the next breakdown is the second breakdown. So from the figure it is clear that at large collector currents, the collector emitter voltage drops. When current is more, that time the voltage is going to become less. Due to this drop in voltage, the collector current increases. So there is a substantial increase in power dissipation. So when collector current is increased, there will be increase in power dissipation. This power dissipation is not evenly spread across the entire volume. Once again I am repeating, this power dissipation is not evenly spread across the entire volume of the device, but it is concentrated in the highly localized regions. So in the form of spots, this power dissipation is concentrated. So in this region the local temperature grows very rapidly and the BJT is damaged, and thus the second breakdown is caused. One definition I want to state here is about the avalanche breakdown. So avalanche occurs when the carriers in the transistor or the transition region are accelerated by the electric field. So that type of breakdown is called as avalanche breakdown. So this was regarding the VI characteristics of BJT. We have to remember some important points here. Two types of breakdown: primary breakdown, then second breakdown, then the three regions, that is cutoff, saturation and the active region. The BJT will not work in active region. Saturation region is divided into two, that is the quasi saturation and the hard saturation. So next we get the question that list the applications of power BJT. 5 marks question, not expected to write the explanation. We are going to write the list of the applications of the power BJT. So these power BJTs are used in SMPS, that is switched mode power supply, so which are used commonly for computers. Then these are used for final audio amplifier in stereo system. So for amplifications it can be used, but we are not going to use this power BJT in amplifiers. Then these are used for DC to AC inverters. So in case of inverters, BJTs are used. Then for relays and display devices, then AC motor speed control, then power control circuits, then these are also used in choppers. So these are the some of the applications of the BJT. So important applications are switched mode power supplies, inverters, DC to DC converters. So next device which we are going to study is the power MOSFET. So power MOSFET is also the type of transistor. Some disadvantages are there for the BJT. As it is a current control device, the drive required for the BJT is little bit complex. So to overcome this disadvantage of the BJT, the next device which is developed is the power MOSFET. So this power MOSFET is a voltage controlled device. So let us see the symbol of power MOSFET. So MOSFETs are metal oxide semiconductor field effect transistors, and they are the majority carrier devices. There are two types of power MOSFETs, that is N channel MOSFET and P channel MOSFET. So symbols are shown in the figure, and the three terminals are drain, gate and the source. So next question which is asked is the explain the structure of power MOSFET. So first we have to draw the structure of the power MOSFET, then we will go with the explanation. So we observe that p-type body, substrate is there, N plus layers are present, then SiO2 layer is there, then gate is connected with the metal. There are different types of MOSFET, again the depletion time and the enhancement type of MOSFET. So in both of these types of MOSFET, there can be the MOSFET as N channel MOSFET and P channel MOSFET. So in this figure we have drawn for the structure of the N channel enhancement mode MOSFET. So the source and drain are formed by the N plus regions. These N plus regions are heavily doped with the doping level of 10 to the power 19 per centimeter cube. The channel between the source and drain is formed by the p-type substrate. The p-type substrate is lightly doped with the doping level of 10 to the power 16 per centimeter cube. An oxide layer is coated between the gate metal and p-type of layer. Once again I am repeating the structure. The source and drain are formed by the N plus region. These N plus regions are heavily doped with the doping level of 10 to the power 19 per centimeter cube. The channel between the source and drain is formed by the p-type substrate. The p-type substrate is lightly doped with the doping level of 10 to the power 60 per centimeter cube. An oxide layer is coated between the gate metal and p-type layer. So before we explain the VI characteristics of power MOSFET, some points we will discuss. When the voltage between gate to source exceeds 0, that is the gate is made positive with respect to source, an accumulation layer is formed in the channel, that is accumulation layer of electron is generated in the body region near oxide layer. This is also called as induced channel of electrons. So therefore the current IDS starts flowing from the drain to source through this induced channel, and when the voltage between gate to source is 0, then induced channel is absent and no current will flow from the drain to source. The next question which is asked is about the characteristics of power MOSFET. So again here, when we consider the question as plot the VI characteristics of the power MOSFET, again we go with the output characteristics, and this output characteristics is plotted, which is shown in the figure, which is plotted between the voltage between drain to source and the drain current. So again here, when we observe the characteristics, we see that the three regions are present, that is cutoff, active and ohmic region. So let us understand the VI characteristic of MOSFET. So from the figure, the VI characteristics of N-channel power MOSFET is plotted. The drain current ID is plotted with respect to drain to source voltage VDS. These characteristics are plotted for various values of gate source voltage, that is VGS. Observe that there are three regions of the characteristics. Which three regions? Ohmic region, active region and the cutoff region. So in the cutoff region, the drain current is negligible and the MOSFET is said to be in off state. MOSFET is driven in cutoff region by applying VGS less than VGS threshold. Here VGS threshold is the threshold gate source voltage. When the gate to source voltage is less than the threshold gate source voltage, MOSFET is off and it is in the cutoff region. When the voltage between gate to source is less than the threshold voltage, then the MOSFET is in off state, that is it is working in the cutoff region. The MOSFET conducts heavily when VGS is greater than the VGS threshold. So when the gate to source voltage exceeds the threshold voltage, the MOSFET starts conducting heavily. So we call that the MOSFET is in on state and this region of operation is the ohmic region. Thus, by applying a heavy gate to source voltage, MOSFET can be turned on. So in the power electronic applications, MOSFETs are never operated in the active region. In the active region, it acts as an amplifier. So for switching applications, MOSFETs are operated only in ohmic and cutoff region. Then we define one parameter, that is BVDSS. So it is the drain to source breakdown voltage when the gate is open circuited. The MOSFET is damaged if drain to source voltage is increased above this value. So this was regarding the VI characteristics of the power MOSFET. Next we will get the advantages, disadvantages and the application of the power MOSFET. So this listing questions will be asked for the 5 marks. So first we will write the merits of MOSFETs, then demerits, then we will go with the applications. So the merits or advantages of MOSFETs are that MOSFETs are majority charge carrier devices. MOSFETs have positive temperature coefficient, hence their paralleling is easy. As it is a voltage controlled device, it has very simple drive circuit. MOSFETs have short turn on and turn off times, hence they operate at very high frequencies. They do not require commutation circuits and gate has full control over the operation of the MOSFET. So these are the advantages of power MOSFET. Next we will list out the demerits or disadvantages of MOSFET. So on state losses in MOSFETs are high. MOSFETs are used only for low power applications. MOSFETs suffer from static charges because it is a voltage control devices. Then the different applications of MOSFETs are that these are used for high frequency and low power inverters. These are used for high frequency SMPS, that is switched mode power supply. MOSFETs are also used for high frequency inverters and choppers. These are also used for low power AC and DC drive. One more thing I want to tell here is that sometimes the question for comparison is asked, compare BJT and MOSFET. That time we have to go with the comparison, and these answers I have already given in the notes. Next we are going to discuss about the IGBT, that is power IGBT, insulated gate bipolar transistor. So whatever disadvantages of BJT and MOSFETs are there, those are overcome in the IGBT, that is insulated gate bipolar transistor. The symbol is shown in the figure. It has got three terminals, that is the collector, gate and emitter. So it is the device which is obtained by combining the properties of BJT and MOSFETs. The gate circuit of MOSFET and collector emitter circuit of BJTs are combined together to form this device. Once again I am repeating, the gate circuit of MOSFET and collector emitter circuit of BJT are combined together to form a new device which we call it as a IGBT, whose symbol is shown in the figure, and the three terminals are collector, gate and emitter. Next we will go with the another question that is asked. Sometimes it is asked as write the structure of IGBT. That time we will simply draw this structure which is shown in the figure. Sometimes if it is asked for more marks, we can go with the explanation. So here we can see P plus injecting layer, then N plus buffer layer, N minus drift region, P body region, then N plus region, emitter which is also called as source, then gate is there, metal contact is there. The gate is not directly connected but through the SiO2 layer. Collector or drain terminal is present. So the structure of IGBT is shown in that figure. So the structure is nearly same as that of the MOSFET. So in this structure we observe that there is additional P plus layer, and this layer we call it as collector or drain layer of IGBT. This P plus injecting layer is heavily doped. It has doping intensity of 10 to the power 19 per centimeter cube. The doping of other layers is similar or nearly same as that of the MOSFET. N plus layer have doping of 10 to the power 19 per centimeter cube. P type body region has doping level of 10 to the power 16 per centimeter cube. The N minus region is lightly doped, whose doping intensity is 10 to the power 14 per centimeter cube. So this was regarding the structure of IGBT. So next we will go with the VI characteristics of the IGBT. So question is asked, explain the VI characteristics of IGBT. So we plot the output characteristics. So figure shows the VI characteristics of IGBT. So this VI characteristics are sometimes also considered as the output characteristic. So in case of IGBT, the collector is also called as drain. and emitter is also called as source. So when we see the plot or characteristics, we plot the characteristics between the drain current with respect to drain to source voltage. So the characteristics are plotted for different values of gate to source voltages. When the gate to source voltage is greater than the threshold voltage, that is VGS threshold, the IGBT turns on, and when the IGBT will go in off state when the value of this VGS is less than the threshold value. So here the IGBT will operate in two regions, that is on region and the off region. The BVDSS is the breakdown drain to source voltage when the gate is open circuited. So this was with respect to the VI characteristics of the IGBT. So next, some question will be asked for 5 marks to list out the advantages, disadvantages and applications of the IGBT. So merits or advantages of IGBTs are: this is a voltage control device, hence drive circuit is very simple. The on state losses are reduced. Switching frequencies are higher than the thyristor. No commutation circuits are required. Gate will have full control over the operation of IGBT. Then IGBTs have approximately flat temperature coefficient, so temperature will not change the resistance of the device or the conductivity of the device. Then the disadvantages of IGBT are: these have static charge problem because it is a voltage control device, and these are more costlier than the BJTs and the MOSFETs. The applications of IGBT can be listed, that these are used for AC motor drives, that is inverters. These are used for DC to DC power supplies, that is choppers. These are used in UPS system. Power semiconductor device which we are going to discuss is silicon control rectifier. So this SCR belongs to the family of thyristors, and this SCR is used most commonly in all the power electronics applications. So the most commonly used power semiconductor device, which is silicon control rectifier, we are going to discuss in this part of the video. So SCR is also called as thyristor. Thyristors are the oldest power semiconductor devices used for power control applications. So the very commonly used device from thyristor family is silicon control rectifier, that is the SCR. The other members of the thyristor families are triac, diac, silicon control switch, that is SCS, silicon unilateral switch SUS, light activated SCR, that is LASCR, etc. Out of all these devices, the most commonly and widely used device is the thyristor, is the SCR. So generally people call this thyristor as SCR, or SCR is considered as the commonly called as a thyristor. So on this topic we get the questions that write the structure of SCR, explain the structure of SCR, explain the VI characteristics of SCR. Then we get 5 marks question for define holding current and latching current. Sometimes we get the question as list the applications, advantages and disadvantages. But the most frequently asked question, repeatedly asked question, is about the anode current or the two transistor analogy of the SCR. This is the repeated question. We will be discussing all these questions in this topic or in this video. So first let us go with the question, that is explain the structure of SCR. Structure means the layer diagram. So first we will draw the figure of the SCR, and we can simplify the figure as a small diagram which has 4 layers, that is NP, NP. Then there are 3 junctions J1, J2, J3, and 3 terminals, that is the anode, gate and cathode. Students, this diagram we have to keep it in mind when we are going to discuss about the VI characteristics, then operation of the SCR. So this is the simple diagram. We have to keep this diagram in our mind for the further answers also. So detailed structure of the SCR is shown in this figure, that is there is P plus layer, P layer, N minus layer and P layer. The terminals are gate, cathode and the anode. We know that SCR is a 4 layer device. So vertical diagram is shown in the figure, and the structure is a detailed structure. The P plus layer is doped at the concentration of 10 to the power 19 per centimeter cube. The P layer is doped at 10 to the power 17 per centimeter cube. So the P and P plus layers forms the anode of the SCR. The thickness of this P layer is 30 to 50 micrometer. The N minus layer is lightly doped. The doping level of this layer is 10 to the power 14 per centimeter cube. The width of N minus layer is 50 to 1000 micrometer. This layer absorbs depletion layer of the junction J2. When SCR is forward biased, that is voltage between anode and cathode is positive, junction J2 is reverse biased and junction J1 and J3 are forward biased. The depletion layer of J2 is absorbed by this N minus layer when the SCR is forward biased. The width of N minus layer decides the forward blocking capability of the SCR. The next P layer, having doping level of 10 to the power 17, forms the gate of the SCR. The width of this layer is 30 to 1000 micrometer. The N plus layer doping level is 10 to the power 19 per centimeter cube, forms the cathode of SCR. So that was the simplified structure of the SCR. Now let us go with the next question, where we are going to understand the VI characteristics of the SCR. So figure shows the VI characteristics of the SCR, which is plotted between anode cathode voltage and anode cathode current. So by using this diagram, we can understand the working of the SCR. So the working of thyristor can be discussed in 3 modes. These are indicated in the diagram. So the 3 modes of the thyristor characteristics are reverse blocking mode, forward blocking mode and forward conduction mode. So figure we have to observe it very sharply. So we see the 3 regions, that is forward blocking state, forward breakover voltage, forward conduction and reverse blocking. So characteristics are plotted between anode cathode voltage and anode cathode current. So the operation or the VI characteristics we will discuss in 3 modes. First we consider the reverse blocking mode. So this figure shows the reverse biased thyristor, that is anode is made negative with respect to cathode, the gate is kept open. So there are 3 PN junctions in the thyristor, that is J1, J2 and J3. Due to this reverse bias, junctions J1 and J3 are reverse biased and junction J2 is forward biased. So, when the two junctions, that is J1 and J3, are reverse biased, the thyristor does not conduct. Due to this reverse bias, a very small current will flow from cathode to anode, and this current is called as reverse leakage current of the thyristor, and this mode is called as reverse blocking mode. Once again, I am repeating the first mode of operation, that is reverse blocking mode. So in reverse blocking mode, the thyristor is reverse biased, anode is connected to negative terminal and cathode is connected to the positive terminal, and gate is kept open. We know that there are 3 PN junctions. Due to this type of supply, the two junctions, that is J1 and J2, will be reverse biased, and junction J1 and J3 will be reverse biased, and junction J2 will be forward biased. So due to this reverse bias, the thyristor will not conduct, but a very small current will flow from cathode to anode, and this current is called as reverse leakage current, and this mode is called as reverse blocking mode. The next mode of the thyristor operation is forward blocking mode. So diagram is shown here. In case of forward blocking mode, the SCR is forward bias, that is anode is connected to positive terminal of the supply, cathode is connected to the negative terminal, but the gate is open. So this diagram shows the working of SCR in forward blocking mode. The thyristor is said to be forward biased when anode is made positive with respect to the cathode. So the figure shows the forward bias mode of the SCR. So due to this forward bias, the junction J1 and J3 is forward biased, but junction J2 is reverse biased. Hence, the forward voltage is to be held by junction J2. J2 will not allow current to flow, but a very small current flows from anode to cathode. This current is called as forward leakage current. A very low current will flow from anode to cathode, and that current we call it as forward leakage current, which we have indicated in the VI characteristic. This current is of the order of few milliamperes. In the forward blocking mode, the thyristor is forward biased, but it does not turn on. Once again, I am repeating, in the forward blocking mode, the thyristor is forward biased, but it does not turn on. The third mode of operation of the SCR is forward conduction mode. So when the thyristor is forward biased, then it can go into forward conduction mode by the following techniques. So first is when the voltage between anode and cathode is more than the forward breakover voltage, that is VBO, and when the gate drive is applied. So two conditions are there to make the SCR go in forward conduction mode. That is, first is when the voltage between anode and cathode is greater than the forward breakover voltage, and second is when gate drive is applied. So the diagram is shown. The thyristor driven into forward conduction mode when anode to cathode voltage, that is VAK, exceeds the forward breakover voltage. The thyristor is said to have turned on when it operates in forward conduction mode. So when the thyristor or the SCR operates in the forward conduction mode, then we say that the thyristor is in on state. When the voltage between anode to cathode, that is VAK, is greater than VBO, the thyristor is driven in forward conduction mode even if the gate is open. Next we go with the when gate drive is applied. So when gate drive is applied, that time we can see the diagram. So we apply voltage between gate to cathode, then anode cathode is forward bias. So diagram we can see, figure we can see. So this is when gate drive is applied. So a positive gate to cathode signal is applied whenever the thyristor is to be driven in forward conduction mode. So when we want to make the thyristor or SCR to go in on state, that time we apply a positive voltage between gate and cathode of the SCR. This is called as gate triggering of the thyristor. This method is called as gate triggering of the thyristor. So this connections are shown in the circuit diagram figure. The thyristor is in forward blocking mode when gate drive is not applied. It is not going to conduct. When the positive gate to cathode voltage applied, current flows from gate to cathode. This current adds to the forward leakage current. Hence, avalanche breakdown of junction J2 takes place at the lower anode to cathode voltage, and the thyristor goes from forward conduction mode or into forward conduction mode. It will move from forward blocking mode to forward conduction mode, even if the voltage between anode and cathode is less than the breakover voltage. So the characteristics is shown, and the dotted lines in the VI characteristic indicates the conduction due to the application of gate drive. All the anode to cathode voltages are less than the forward breakover voltage. So these were regarding the explanation or the operation of the VI characteristics of the SCR. So in this case, two currents are to be defined, which are very important. Again, this question is repeatedly asked, that is about the definition of latching current and the holding current. So when we observe the VI characteristics of the SCR, the figure shows the VI characteristics of the SCR where two important currents are plotted, that is the latching current and the holding current. All the regions of the VI characteristic is shown in this diagram also. So 5 marks repeated question is asked about the latching current and the holding current. Definition is asked repeatedly. So let us go with the definition of latching current and the holding current. So we define latching current is the minimum forward current. I am repeating these definitions because these are very important. So latching current is the minimum forward current that flows through the thyristor to keep it in forward conduction mode, that is in the on state at the time of triggering. If forward current is less than latching current, the thyristor does not turn on. So keep it in mind that to make the SCR go from the forward blocking mode to forward conduction mode, a minimum current is required, and that minimum current is called as latching current. The latching current is of the order of 10 to 15 milliamperes. Let us go with the repetition of this definition. Latching current is the minimum forward current that flows through the thyristor to keep it in forward conduction mode, that is in the on state at the time of triggering. If forward current is less than latching current, then the thyristor does not turn on. The latching current is of the order of 10 to 15 milliamperes. The next important definition asked in the question paper is the holding current. So holding current is the minimum forward current that flows through the thyristor to keep it in forward conduction mode. So when forward current reduces below holding current, the thyristor turns off. Means if the forward anode current decreases below this holding current, then the thyristor or the SCR will go in off state. So this is the minimum current required to keep or to hold the SCR in on state. The holding current of the thyristor is of the order of 8 to 10 milliamperes. So latching current is more as compared to the holding current, and all these indications are shown in the figure. So IL indicates latching current, I0 indicates the latching current is IL, IH is the holding current. So this was with this diagram you should draw in the answer sheet. So okay, so let us go with the next question. So here also 5 marks question we are going to discuss. The question asked will be advantages, disadvantages of SCR. So that can be written as merits, demerits and applications of SCR. So first we will discuss with the advantages. Very small amount of gate drive is required since SCR is a regenerative device. It goes in latching action. SCRs with high voltage and high ratings are available. On state losses in the SCRs are less or they are reduced. Then demerits of SCR, those are the disadvantages of SCR. Gate has no control once the SCR is turned on. This is due to the latching action. External circuits are required to turn on the external circuits are required to turn off the SCR, that we call it as a commutation. Operating frequencies of SCR are very low. Then snubbers, that is the RC circuits, are required for dV by dt protection. So these were the disadvantages of SCR. Then the applications of SCRs are best suitable for controlled rectifiers. These are used for AC regulators, lighting and heating applications. SCRs are used for DC motor drives, large power supplies and electronic circuit breakers. So there are many applications of the SCRs. We can add as SCRs are used as inverters also. These are used in choppers. These are used as control rectifier. So a number of applications we can add for the SCR. So these were the different questions related with the SCR. In further slides I will be explaining the very important question, that is the two transistor analogy. Before that we will discuss about diac and triac, and these are also the important devices. Sometimes a comparison question can be asked. Compare diac with triac, compare BJT with SCR, MOSFET with BJT. That time we can write all these type of answers by understanding the concepts related with that device. One more thing is asked in the question paper. Write the features of particular device. So for example, if we are discussing diac, then the question can be asked, explain the or list the features of the diac. Then whatever things we know about the diac or that particular device, that we have to write. If they ask for diode, then we have to write it for diode. If they ask for SCR, we have to write for the SCR. So let us go with the next device, that is the diac. So diac also belongs to the thyristor family. So in the figure the structure is shown and the symbol is shown. So diac is having two terminals, that is MT1 and MT2. It is one of the important member of thyristor and it is a bidirectional device. So it allows the flow of current in both the direction. So when we see the structure, we see that there are two terminals, that is MT1 and MT2. Then there are two junctions J1 and J2, and the layers are shown, or the layered structure is shown in the diagram. So a diac is a PNPN structured 4-layer 2-terminal semiconductor device. MT1 and MT2 are the main two terminals of this device. This is an uncontrolled device. There is no control terminal in this device. It has two junctions J1 and J2. So from the layer diagram, it is clear that unlike the diode, it does not resemble to diode, but it looks like the bipolar transistor. However, the central layer of the diac is free from any connection with the terminals. The doping level at the two ends of the device is same, which leads to the identical VI characteristics. Now we will discuss about the VI characteristics of the diode. So VI characteristics of diode is plotted and which is shown in this figure. So when we observe the figure, we see that the characteristics are identical in the two quadrants, that is in the first quadrant and in the third quadrant. So let us understand how it works. Here plus V and plus I we have indicated because the MT1 terminal can be positive or it can be negative. So in first quadrant, MT1 is positive with respect to MT2, and in third quadrant, MT1 is negative with respect to MT2. So one terminal we have to always keep it as a reference, so that we will not get any sort of confusion. So the device can be triggered by either a positive or negative half cycle of an AC cycle. Now here this diac and triac are the devices which are working for AC. They allows the flow of current in both the directions, so the supply will be AC. So the device, that is the diac, can be triggered by either positive or negative half cycle of an AC. So for positive half cycle, the characteristics is obtained in the first quadrant. So at a voltage less than the breakover voltage, a very small amount of current will flow through the device, which is called as leakage current. So unless and until the device goes in forward breakover, it is not going to conduct. A very small current, that is the leakage current, will flow through the device. Leakage current produces due to the drift electrons, and the leakage current flows due to the drift of electrons and holes at the depletion region. It is not sufficient to cause conduction of the device, and practically the device will remain in the non-conductive mode. This portion of the characteristic is shown by OA. So OA indicates this mode, that is the forward blocking mode, or it is called as blocking state. Here no forward and reverse, we call it as a blocking state. At point A, when the voltage level reaches the breakover voltage of the diode, the device starts conducting. So during the conduction period, the device exhibits negative resistance characteristics. The current flowing in the device starts increasing and the voltage across it starts decreasing. So this portion of the characteristics is represented as A to B in the figure and is called as the conduction state. The value of current corresponding to this point A is known as breakover current, IBO. All these parameters are indicated in the VI characteristic. A similar explanation we can go for the third quadrant operation. So for the application of negative half cycle of the characteristic obtained will be in the third quadrant. So this is because the doping level of the two junctions will be same. Once the device starts conducting, the current flowing through it is very high, so it is limited by some external resistor. So in case of first quadrant characteristics, MT1 is positive with respect to MT2, whereas in the third quadrant characteristics, MT2 is positive with respect to the MT1. So this was all with respect to the DIAC. Let us go with the next power semiconductor device, that is the TRIAC. Before I explain with the TRIAC, if the application of DIAC is asked, then one application of DIAC we can write, that is DIACs are mainly used as triggering agents for TRIACs. Okay, now let us go with the next very important power semiconductor devices belonging to the thyristor family is the TRIAC. So question again will be asked as a structure, VI characteristics or applications, advantages and disadvantages. So first let us go with the symbol and the structure. So we can observe the structure of the TRIAC, then the symbol. So it has 3 terminals, means it is a control device, then its equivalent circuit. The TRIAC is the most widely used member of the thyristor family. It is basically a combination of two SCRs connected in anti-parallel, that is inverse parallel configuration. Unlike SCR, it is a bidirectional device. SCR is a unidirectional device and can be triggered either by positive or negative gate signal. In case of SCR, we require positive trigger only, but in case of TRIAC, positive or negative gate trigger is used. Because of its bidirectional conduction property, TRIAC is widely used in the field of power electronics for control purposes of AC signal, and this is a most commonly used device for AC control. The TRIAC is a 3-terminal 4-layer device. The 3 terminals are MT1, MT2 and the gate. Its symbol and construction we have seen in the figure. So the structure also of TRIAC we have seen, observe. The terminal MT1 is connected to layers N2 and P2. Similarly, gate is connected to 2 layers, that is N3 and P2. MT2 is connected to 2 layers, that is N4 and P1. That's why this is a bidirectional device which will allow the flow of current in both the directions. These are the VI characteristics of TRIAC. Now here we plot the VI characteristics as plus V and plus I, and here we will be considering one terminal as a reference. Otherwise, when we will plot by considering all the modes of operation of a TRIAC, then the device will operate in all the 4 quadrants of the VI characteristics. Here we will consider 2 quadrants. So like the SCR, TRIAC also starts conducting only when the breakover voltage is reached. Before the breakover voltage is reached, the leakage current, which is very small or of magnitude, flows through the device, but the device will remain in the off state. So the first quadrant characteristics is just like the SCR, but in the third quadrant characteristics of the TRIAC, it is identical to the first quadrant, except that as the polarities of the main terminals change, the direction of the current also changes. Now observe all the parameters on this VI characteristic. So in the first quadrant it will work similar to the SCR unless and until the device goes in triggering mode or the forward breakover voltage is overcome, the device will go in on state. So operation of the triac is again easily understood by considering the VI characteristics. Next we will consider the different advantages, disadvantages and applications of the triac. Now to understand this advantages, merits or list, we will consider the following points. So merits of triac are that triac is a bidirectional device. It conducts in both the direction. Triac turns off when voltage is reversed. Single gate control conduction takes place in both the directions. Triacs with high voltage and current ratings are available. The disadvantages of triac can be listed as triacs are latching devices like SCR, hence they are not suitable for DC power applications. Gate has no control over conduction once the triac is turned on. Triacs have very small switching frequency. So those are the disadvantages or the demerits of a triac. Next we will go with the applications of the triac. So triacs are used as AC power controllers and heaters, fan, etc. controllers. So these are suitable for AC loads because triacs conducts in both the direction, that is positive half cycle of the supply and negative half cycle of the supply. Then these triacs can also be used as triggering device for SCR. So this was all with respect to the power semiconductor device, that was triac. Now let us discuss the very important question from this chapter, that is two transistor analogy of SCR. So this is a repeatedly asked question. This question is asked for 5 marks or this question can be asked for 10 marks. In some question paper, the two transistor analogy of SCR can be asked as a derive the equation for anode current. So we have to write the same explanation, same circuits. So we have to discuss this question and answer in this slide. So explain the two transistor analogy of SCR. We have to first draw the diagram. So we know that SCR is a 3-terminal 4-layer device. So we can consider it as equivalent to two transistors connected back to back, which is shown in the figure. So first observe this diagram very properly. After observation we can go with the discussion how the current equation is found out. So by using this two transistor equivalent circuit diagram, the operation of the SCR can be understood very easily. The first figure shows the 4-layer structure of the SCR. Then the middle or the second figure shows middle 2 layers split into 2 separate parts. So you can see that two transistors, that is PNP and NPN, are connected back to back, whose equivalent circuit is shown in the third diagram. So the operation of the SCR can be explained with the help of this two transistor model. Now the directions of currents, the different components of current, that is the anode current, base current, collector current, the cathode current, everything is indicated in the circuit diagram. Then we are using two transistors, that is T1 and T2, which has got two different gains, that is alpha 1 and alpha 2. Let us understand the working by considering this structure. So as shown in the figure, the middle two layers are split into two separate parts. Because of this, the two transistors are formed. These terminals are shown. Okay, so transistor T1 is PNP, whereas T2 is NPN. The base of T1 is connected to collector of T2. Similarly, base of T2 is connected to collector of T1. These transistors are in common base configuration. We are using this transistor in the common base configuration. So when the thyristor is forward biased and gate is open, various currents flow, which are shown in the figure as I have already told. The anode to cathode current is indicated as ID. The collector current, emitter current and leakage currents of T1 is related by the following equations. So IC1 is equal to IC1 is equal to alpha 1 IE1 plus ICO1. Here IE1 is equal to ID and ICO1 is leakage current of T1. Similarly for T2, IC2 is equal to alpha 2 IE2 plus ICO2. Here IE2 is equal to ID and ICO2 is leakage current of T2. Therefore, these equations can be written as, what above indicated equation can be written as IC1 is equal to alpha 1 ID plus ICO1. IC2 is equal to alpha 2 ID plus ICO2. So this figure which was indicated in the previous slide, from that we see that the current ID flows through the collector of T1 and T2. Hence we can write ID is equal to IC1 plus IC2, and after putting the values and further simplification, finally we get ID is equal to ICO1 plus ICO2 divided by 1 minus alpha 1 plus alpha 2. ICO1 plus ICO2 can be considered as total reverse leakage current of junction J2. Thus this current can be denoted by ICO. So the equation can be written as ID equal to ICO divided by 1 minus alpha 1 plus alpha 2. So once again the final equation here we are writing is ID, that is the current between anode to cathode of the SCR, is equal to ICO divided by 1 minus alpha 1 plus alpha 2. So here some conclusions we are going to draw. So after observing this equation, we say that ICO, which is the reverse leakage current of the reverse bias junction J2, and alpha 1 is the common base current gain of T1, alpha 2 is common base current gain of T2. Initially when forward voltage is small, alpha 1 plus alpha 2 is very small and less than 1. Hence forward blocking current is given by this equation. As forward voltage applied across the thyristor increases, the value of alpha 1 and alpha 2 also increases. When alpha 1 plus alpha 2 sum tends unity, then ID approaches infinity as given by the last equation. At this instant, internal regeneration starts and the thyristor goes into forward conduction mode, or that is in the on state. Now once the thyristor goes in on state, then even if the gate drive is open, due to this latching action or the regeneration action, the anode current goes on increasing. Thus, by using the two transistor analogy of the SCR, we can explain the operation of the thyristor. Now, in this section, I am going to explain about the control rectifiers. So, on this topic, that is on control rectifiers, there will be a 10 marks question which is asked always in the section 2 or the part B of the question paper. So, the circuits and the waveforms are to be drawn essentially, then we have to go with the explanation. So, before we start with the different questions, let us understand what are controlled rectifiers. So, the block diagram is shown in the figure, and we people know that what is a rectifier. So, rectifier is a circuit used to convert the AC signal into DC. So, control rectifier accepts the input in the form of AC and the output is in the form of DC. The output transferred to the load is controlled by the triggering angle by using some external control circuits. So, this operation is clearly represented in the block diagram. We know what are rectifiers. Rectifiers are AC to DC converters. The most common example of rectifier is the diode. So, whatever AC signal is given, diode will allow the flow of current only in one direction and we get a DC output. But in this section, we are going to study about the controlled rectifier. Means the output voltage is controlled. Whatever value of output voltage is needed, that can be obtained by using the controlled rectifiers. And this control voltage is obtained by using a firing circuit or the control circuit. So, this is represented in the block diagram. AC is converted into DC by using control rectifier, and the firing of this control rectifier is controlled by the control circuit. So, this explanation whatever I have done is written here. What are the things present here? So, the power transferred across the load is the regulated output, and the triggering angle alpha of the devices is controlled by the control circuit. The control rectifiers can be a single phase or it can be a 3-phase depending upon the load power requirement. It is mainly used in battery chargers and DC drives, etc. Now, let us understand about the classification of this control rectifiers. So, control rectifiers are classified as uncontrolled rectifiers and control rectifiers. Actually, basically the rectifiers are classified as uncontrolled rectifiers and control rectifiers. So, diode rectifiers are known as uncontrolled rectifier because for a fixed value of AC input voltage, the output DC voltage is fixed and cannot be changed. Then the control rectifiers. So, rectifier circuits using thyristors along with diodes are known as controlled rectifiers because by changing the firing angle of the thyristor, the output DC voltage can be controlled. And control rectifiers can be further classified as half wave controlled, uses diodes and SCRs. Fully controlled type of rectifiers uses the SCRs. No diodes are used. Then another way to classify these rectifiers are half wave rectifier and full wave rectifier. So, half wave rectifier conducts during 1/2 cycle and produces one output pulse per cycle of the AC input. So these are also called as one pulse converters. Another name for the rectifiers, control rectifiers, is the converters. Full wave rectifier conduction for both the half cycle and produces two output pulses per cycle of the AC input. So in half wave, single cycle at the output, and in full wave both the half cycles will be converted to the DC value. Then another way to classify the rectifiers is depending upon the construction. So there are two types, midpoint rectifier and bridge rectifier. So full wave rectifiers are classified as midpoint and bridge rectifiers. Midpoint rectifier is also referred as center tap rectifier, where it uses a transformer having center tap secondary. Bridge rectifier is a full wave rectifier constructed without using center tap transformer, and the construction of the SCRs is in the form of bridge. Then another way to classify the rectifiers is fully controlled bridge rectifier and half controlled bridge rectifier, depending upon whether all the SCR are used or whether diodes and SCRs are used to construct the circuit. So controlled bridge rectifiers are classified as fully controlled and half controlled bridge rectifiers. A controlled bridge rectifier constructed uses only thyristor is called as fully controlled bridge rectifier. A controlled bridge rectifier making use of thyristor as well as diodes is known as half controlled bridge rectifier. Then depending upon the phases of input supply, these are classified as single phase and three phase. Then depending upon the what you can call it as the quadrant operation, these are semi converter, full converter and dual converter. So a semi converter is one quadrant converter, a full converter is two quadrant converter, and a dual converter is a four quadrant converter. So this was with respect to the classification of controlled rectifiers. So very simple, different ways are there to classify the rectifiers. Controlled rectifiers are also called as converters. So let us go with the first type of controlled rectifier, that is the basic rectifier. Questions are asked on all the types of controlled rectifiers. So for these questions we have to draw the circuit diagram, then we have to draw the waveform, then we have to go for the explanation. So the first type of control rectifier is single phase half wave control rectifier. The diagram is shown. Supply is AC, single thyristor is used, load here we are using is the pure resistive load, and in the waveform we see that first wave represents the supply voltage. Then we know that even if the SCR is forward biased, it will not go in conduction till triggering pulse is applied. So firing pulses are denoted in the second waveform. The third wave indicates the load voltage and the fourth wave indicates the load current. So these are the circuit diagram and the waveform. So let us understand the working. So figure we have seen the circuit diagram of single phase half wave control rectifier circuit and the relevant waveforms. So during the positive half cycle of the supply voltage, the thyristor T1 anode is positive with respect to its cathode. Until the thyristor is triggered by a proper gate pulse, it blocks the flow of load current in the forward direction. When the thyristor is fired at an angle alpha, the full supply voltage is applied across the load. So now the load is directly connected across the AC supply. So we are not considering that The load is reactive, it is purely resistive. So voltage and current are in phase with each other. The magnitude of current depends on the applied voltage and the value of load resistance R. So by varying the firing angle alpha, the output voltage can be controlled. So during the period of conduction, voltage drop across the device is of order of 1 volt. During the negative half cycle of the supply voltage, the thyristor T1 blocks the flow of load current and no voltage will be applied across the load resistance because T1 is reverse biased and it will go in off state. So this is the operation of the simple basic circuit, that is single phase half wave control rectifier. Next question, which is asked for 10 marks, repeated question for part B of the question paper, that is explain single phase midpoint controlled rectifier. So it is the type of full wave control rectifier where two diodes are used. Circuit arrangement is shown in the figure and the waveforms are drawn below the figure. So waveforms also we can see, supply voltage is there, firing pulses are there. For we are using two diodes, so two type of firing pulses, then load voltage and load current. So let us understand the working of this single phase midpoint control rectifier. So during the positive half cycle of the AC supply, when terminal A of the transformer is positive with respect to terminal B, the thyristor T1 is forward biased and the thyristor T2 is reverse biased. So initially both the thyristors are in the off state since no triggering pulses are given. So when T1 is triggered at a firing angle alpha, the current flows from terminal A through T1, the resistive load R, and back to the center tap of the transformer, that is terminal N indicated in the diagram. So the current continues to flow up to the angle alpha when the line voltage reverses its polarity and T1 is turned off. So conduction angle of T1 is given by beta, which is equal to pi minus alpha. Angle alpha is the angle of firing or delay angle, and unless and until the gate trigger is applied, the SCR will not go in conduction even if it is forward biased. Now during the negative half cycle of the AC supply, the terminal B of the transformer is positive with respect to A and T2 is forward biased. When T2 is triggered at an angle pi plus alpha, current flows from terminal B through T2, the resistive load R, and back to the center tap N of the transformer. This current continues till angle 2 pi when T2 is turned off. Conduction angle of T2 is given by beta equal to 2 pi minus pi plus alpha, means again it is pi minus alpha. So there it is assumed that both the thyristors are triggered with the same firing angle and thereby they share the load current equally. Now here the output voltage will be for both the half cycle, that is positive half cycle and negative half cycle of the supply. When T1 is conducting, T2 is off, and when T2 is conducting, T1 will be off. So the waveforms are shown. So this is all regarding the single phase midpoint controlled rectifier. Next, controlled rectifier is the single phase fully controlled bridge rectifier. So when we call it as a fully controlled bridge rectifier, it uses 4 SCRs. So circuit diagram and waveform is shown. So we observe that here 4 SCRs are used: T1, T2, T3, T4. Load is resistive load. So bridge circuit is constructed in this diagram. The bridge circuit is constructed in which diagonally opposite pairs of thyristors are made to conduct and are commutated simultaneously, means they are fired at the same time and they are commutated at the same time. So during the positive half cycle of the AC input, thyristor T1 and T2 will conduct and current flows through the path P, T1, R, T2 and N. During the negative half cycle of the AC input, thyristor T3 and T4 is going to conduct and the current flows through the path N, T3, R, T4 and P. So the thyristors are commutated at the end of respective half cycles by natural commutation, and thus we get the full wave output. So waveforms, when we observe, we see that the first wave is supply, then second wave represents the firing pulses given to first and second thyristor. Third wave indicates the firing signal given to the third and fourth. First wave, first and second. Third wave, it will be the firing pulses to third and fourth thyristor, and the last wave indicates the load current, that is the AC is converted to DC. So this was all with respect to the working of the single phase fully controlled bridge rectifier. Next we will study the single phase half control bridge rectifier. Circuit diagram indicates that there are 2 SCRs and 2 diodes, so it is called as half control. So waveform and the construction is shown in this figure. When one pair of SCR is replaced by diodes in a single phase fully controlled bridge converter circuit, the obtained circuit is called as half control bridge circuit. Such circuit was shown in the previous slide. So during the positive half cycle of the AC supply, thyristor T1 and diode D1 are forward biased. When thyristor T1 is triggered at a firing angle alpha, current flows through path P, T1, R, D1 and N. The load current will flow until it is commutated by reversal of the supply voltage at an angle omega t equal to pi. So when the supply cycle changes, naturally the SCR will go in off state. During the negative half cycle of the AC supply, thyristor T2 and diode D2 are forward biased. When thyristor T2 is triggered at a firing angle pi plus alpha, current will flow through the path N, T1, N, T2, R, D2 and P. The load current will flow until it is commutated by reversal of supply voltage at angle omega t equal to 2 pi. So the waveforms and the voltages has been shown in the previous slide. So this was with respect to the control rectifiers, that is converters. So let us go with the next question, that is about the freewheeling diode. This question is one of the important question, repeatedly asked question. What is the importance of freewheeling diode? What are the uses of freewheeling diode? Otherwise they will ask how the freewheeling diode is going to work. So this information regarding the freewheeling diode is asked in different ways. So we will draw the diagram so that we can understand the operation of the freewheeling diode. So freewheeling diode is used to circulate the load energy in the load itself. The freewheeling diode gives the path for the load current. So when we observe this circuit diagram, what we observe, that the freewheeling diode is connected in parallel with the inductive load. So as we are using AC supply and single SCR, so during positive half cycle the SCR is going to conduct when it is fired, and no current will flow from the freewheeling diode. So at the end of the positive half cycle, the supply voltage becomes negative. SCR turns off due to natural commutation. Inductor opposes sudden variation in current. We know the property of the inductor is that it is used to oppose the rate of change of current. So inductor opposes sudden variation in current flowing through it and generates a voltage with polarity shown in the diagram. So voltage across inductor will be equal to L di naught by dt. The induced voltage VL forward biases the freewheeling diode and it starts conducting. The freewheeling current flows due to the energy stored in the load inductance. So during negative half cycle T1 is not going to conduct, means whatever the energy inductance has, and the back EMF of the inductor will make the freewheeling diode forward biased and it will start conducting, and the output current circulates through the freewheeling diode and load, and there is continuously a load current. This process is called as freewheeling. If load energy is fed back to the supply, means then it is called as feedback. So this was all with respect to the freewheeling diode. So generally the freewheeling diodes are connected in parallel with the inductive load. No need if the load is a resistive load. And this was the explanation for the freewheeling diode. So here I have completed with the all important questions on the first unit of industrial automation. So please watch this video properly and then write the answers to the questions in the question bank. I have covered all the questions of the question bank in this video. Thank you.